Good morning. Today I want to talk about the lunar month from December 19th through January 18th. It's coming up, so let me share my screen and we can get started. This will take just a second. I have to hide some panels so that I can see what I'm doing. And we're there. Okay, so this is the lunar month for the world, America, and Trump, December 19th through January 18th. And we'll start with the world. And here is a chart, a bar graph of sorts, showing within 1 degree orb the primary transits for December and January. These are transit to transit planets. December 18th starts about here, and December 19th is about here. January 18th, where the month ends, is about here. And at first glance, when we look at it, doesn't seem like there's much going on. There seems to be, for instance, a big blank space here, but it's going to be a little bit more dynamic than it appears at first glance. Now we're starting off with Jupiter square Chiron. Jupiter's in Cancer. Chiron is in Aries. And this has been going on for a while within that 1 degree orb. It's going to become exact on December 21st, which is the same day as the Winter Solstice. And then it continues almost to the end of the month. And what does this mean? Well, what is the nature of Chiron? The true nature of Chiron, in my opinion, and the opinion of others, is that it is this voice inside of us that looks at this world and says, surely there must be something other than this. It's that inner voice that nudges us to transcend the visible reality and enter into this higher, invisible, more transcendent, more joyous spiritual realm. It's a bridge between the visible and the invisible realms. And this can be derived astronomically from the fact that Chiron orbits between Saturn and Uranus, sometimes going inside the orbit of Saturn, and at other times it goes outside of the orbit of Uranus. So if that is the true nature of Chiron, where does the wounding come in? Well, that comes about because our hard shells often need to first be cracked in order to let the light in. That leads to wounding, which can then be followed by healing and then by transcendence. Chiron is now in Aries. That refers to individual action and also individual spirituality. In its highest expression, this is encouraging people to find and discover spirituality, not through their religious institutions, but on their own, to ask questions like, who am I? And to seek answers. But Aries also refers quite often to aggressive or militaristic actions. And so in its lower expression, we're seeing a lot of wounding in the world right now through aggression. We have wars between Ukraine and Russia, Israel and Hamas, and we have Trump beating the drums of war just outside of Venezuela. And then there are other conflicts also going on in various places around the world. Now, what about Jupiter in Cancer? Well, Cancer is all about family, the personal environment, and security, feeling safe. Jupiter is about growth and expansion. Now, what people want right now is they want to be safe and secure in their own personal environments. They want to experience some personal growth and prosperity. They want to do their jobs and to just get ahead. They want their families to also be safe and secure. But this is being threatened by Chiron and Aries right now. Because of the square relationship, these two planetary drives are not working together in a coordinated way. Consequently, the desires and the directions in which people want to grow right now are being threatened by Chiron and Aries, by warlike behaviors, and other behaviors of individuals around the world. So this can all come to a head on the winter solstice. But since it's happening on the winter solstice, that makes it more intense, and the impacts could last for at least the next 3 months until the spring equinox. So we might look out for various sorts of wounding, whether it's from wars or terrorist attacks, uh, acts of violence, mass killings, or even nature rebelling against us. Fires, storms of various sorts. These could be building to a peak on December 21st, and then it starts to fade away as we go through the rest of December. But because of the intensity of the solstice, it may last for quite a while. Now, once we get into the second week of January, we have a favorable aspect. Saturn sextile Uranus. Saturn is in Pisces right now. Pisces is the dreamer, the visionary. But Saturn wants to make dreams and visions concrete. It's about concrete things, control, discipline, and contraction, pulling back from things. Uranus was briefly in Gemini this past summer, but then it retrograded back to Taurus for a while. It will go back into Gemini toward the end of April. But in Taurus, it's more concerned with the resources we need to survive, financial things. And Uranus is very creative. Now, at its worst, Uranus in Taurus simply disrupts things. It breaks the existing pattern. And that could be a disruption of all sorts of financial institutions and practices. But because we have a sextile between Saturn and Uranus, we could get something a little bit more positive out of this. We could get the more creative side. So chances are, if we look at the world today, many people are struggling economically. Thus, I expect people will exert some discipline and find creative ways to get by and to get the resources that they need. And they will try and turn their dreams into reality. Now, during the second week of January, we also have a couple of discordant aspects. Mars in opposition to Jupiter and Mars square Chiron. So Chiron is coming up a couple of times. So there are a couple of times where we can probably expect some wounding from Chiron. And Mars is going to be in Capricorn. Mars is aggressive. It's militaristic. It's violent at times. It takes action. It's in Capricorn, which has to do with leaders and controlling things. So, leaders around the world, people in power, may be taking actions at this time in the second week of January, which threaten people's security, Cancer, their desires for growth, Jupiter, and cause some individual wounding, Chiron and Aries. But when we get to the second week of January, we have Mars sextile Saturn and trine Uranus. And this happens on the 19th, at the same time that we have Saturn making a sextile to Uranus. So actually, there is going to be a Mars, Saturn, Uranus minor grand trine on January the 19th. And that is going to bring in some very positive, well-coordinated energies. So we'll have Mars trine Uranus, Uranus sextile Saturn, and Saturn sextile Mars. So this innovation in financial matters, this discipline and desire to turn our dreams into reality, it is going to be energized by Mars at this point in Capricorn. Consequently, whatever crisis occurs during the second week of January, we might get some sort of resolution to the matter in the third week of January, around January 19th. Okay, that is sort of a broad view of this lunar month, just looking at transit-to-transit planets from Mars on out. Now, if we look at the inner planets, we also see some interesting things. First, with the inner planets, in this lunar month, there are a lot more hard aspects and soft aspects. And even though a lot of these aspects may last just a day or two, this suggests that for much of this lunar month, it's going to be like one thing after another, day after day. A lot of small stresses and tensions and things nagging at us that we have to deal with. We also see Chiron appearing a lot. We have Jupiter square Chiron, Venus square Chiron, Sun square Chiron, Mars square Chiron, and Mercury square Chiron. So there will probably be a lot of wounding here and there going on. And Chiron is going to turn direct on January 2nd. Now, whenever a planet is moving retrograde, its influence as a psychological drive, it's turned more inward. It's something we contemplate and think about on the inside. When it moves direct, its expression tends to be a little bit more outward. At its best, this could be outward spirituality, individual spirituality that people are attaining. But at its worst, this could be more outward wounding as a result of aggression around the world. And we also have some of the inner planets moving into Capricorn. Everything inner planet-wise tends to be in Sagittarius around Thanksgiving. People travel. That's a Jupiter thing. They get with family, and it's a rather joyous time. But afterwards, they move into Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, and things are a little bit more restrictive and require more discipline. Now, the Capricorn period of the year, particularly in the northern latitudes where we have the winter solstice and the darkness lasts longer than the light. Those can be depressing times for a lot of people. And we try and counteract that darkness and that depression through various festivals of light and festivals of gift giving like Christmas. But those are just the antidotes to the darkness that is there. So we move into a little bit more restrictive period as these inner planets move into Capricorn, ruled by Saturn. And this is probably also a time when many people who have overspent on Christmas gifts, they start to think about the budget and what they need to do to get the bills paid in the month that is coming. Okay, let's take a look at the new moon, first quarter moon, full moon, and third quarter moon, and then the next new moon related to this lunar month. These are going to be the stress points during the month, the times of increased tension. And one thing we have here, of course, is Jupiter very strongly making a square to Chiron. We've talked about that already. We also have Saturn and Neptune making some squares. Neptune is very strongly square the Sun and the Moon, and Saturn is very strongly square Venus. Now, at the very start of this lunar month, let me get back here. At the very start, we still have Sun, Moon, and Venus in Sagittarius. So people want to feel good. They want to feel jovial, expansive, and even do a little bit of traveling. But Saturn is conjunct Neptune with about a 4-degree orb here in Pisces. And the policies and plans and restrictions coming from other sources that are being put on people are interfering with their ability to be joyous, jovial, and expansive at this time. So there are plans being put into place right now that are going to interfere with what people want to do on a personal level. Now we also have the lunar nodal axis making a square to Mercury, and Mercury has to do with our left brain, our verbal brain. So mentally, things are going to feel a little bit more intense to people at the time of this new moon. It might be harder to unwind and to relax. People's brains are going to be working a little faster. That chatter is going to be going on. So those are the stresses at this moment. But we also have some good aspects. We still have this Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, minor grand trine in effect with a 1-degree orb. And actually, I have different orbs I'm using here than 1 degree, but it's still in effect. I'm using what I call my harmonic orbs because, for example, if two planets are making a sextile to one another, using my harmonic orbs, then it's guaranteed that they will be conjunct in the sixth harmonic. Likewise, if two planets are making a trine to one another, using my harmonic orbs, then it is guaranteed that they will be conjunct in the third harmonic. Okay, so that's where my orbs for these aspects come from. But we still have this minor grand trine in effect. And this is bringing in new perspectives into the planet and into people's minds. It's going to be there off and on for the next few years. And for most of that time, Uranus will be in Gemini instead of Taurus. But for right now, with Uranus and Taurus, the focus is more on the resources people need to survive. Pluto in Aquarius, that puts a focus on innovative technology, humanitarianism, charity, and collaborating with others. And these forces are going to work together in a coordinated way with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. And with these planets right now in Pisces, the focus is not on taking action, but planning action. We have our dreams going on right now about what we want to make concrete, what we want new structures to be. Neptune is dissolving the old structures. That has been going on for the past year. And just look at how many things have changed in America. But the big question is what new structures will come in to take their place. And Uranus and Pluto are guiding that effort. Now we also have Chiron making a trine to Venus, and Venus is connected with our nonverbal right brain. Venus is the pleasure principle, the drive to reduce tension, and as a result, we have experiences that we categorize as either good or bad. And those categorizations of what is pleasurable, what is not pleasurable to us, it creates a nonverbal map of values for us. What makes us feel good, that is good. What makes us feel bad, it is bad. So Venus helps us develop our nonverbal system of values. And fortunately, Chiron is going to be bringing some healing to our right brains at this point. And later on in the month, it will make a trine to Mercury and will bring some healing to our left brains. Now we also have Jupiter making a trine to Saturn. It's waning. It's going away, getting weaker day by day. But for now, we still have good coordination between growth and regulation. And this is also helping progressives communicate better with conservatives in society and find some common ground, at least for now. And last but not least, we have this nice conjunction between Sun, Moon, and Venus. And that is bringing some happiness into the world, particularly with these planets in Jupiter. People want to be happy and stress-free right now. People want security for themselves and their families and their home with Jupiter in Cancer. And we're having partial success. We have some good aspects from Jupiter to other planets and good aspects from Venus to Chiron, but we also have some stresses, new policies that are coming into play, the dismantling of old structures that is causing stress. Now, if we go just a couple of days forward, we come to the winter solstice, and not much has changed except for the fact that the moon has moved on from Sagittarius into Capricorn. So there's more of a feeling of austerity at this point and a need to discipline oneself and to probably spend less, to take control of one's finances. This is also the day that the square between Jupiter and Chiron becomes exact. And so, as I mentioned before, this could be a peak time for some kind of wounding, aggressive actions that affect our personal security, our homes, our family. And it could take the form of natural disasters too. It doesn't always have to be armies involved, creating suffering for people. But because the new moon and these aspects occurs so closely to the winter solstice, everything is going to be intensified a bit more and last a bit longer. Now, when we get to the first quarter moon on December 27th, we still have Jupiter square Chiron, and now we have this Sun, Venus, Mars conjunction that has formed, and it is being squared by the moon. Of course, moon making a waxing square to the sun, that is the very definition of the first quarter moon. So that by itself is not so unusual, but now it's being joined by Venus and Mars. They're part of the picture. So there are going to be things going on inside of us which are a little difficult to express outwardly. The moon is our interface with the public. We're going to be feeling some things, but their expression will not be well coordinated. And what are we feeling? Well, our desire for pleasure and peace, it's going to be energized by Mars. Mars has to do with action and physical things. So with all of this in Capricorn, there's a little bit more emphasis on discipline and trimming back and picking and choosing our pleasures, but people are going to probably want some sort of escape, some sort of physical pleasure that they can enjoy, whether it is romance or physically traveling for enjoyment, or enjoying or participating in sports events or exercising. Whatever it is, there's going to be a little bit more emphasis on physical pleasures, things which make our bodies feel good, one way or another, and on taking physical action. Now, we still have a lot of good aspects going on. The Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto minor grand trine is there. Mars is making a sextile and a trine to the lunar nodal axis. That is going to intensify those physical drives a bit. We still have Jupiter trine Saturn, even though this aspect is weakening. We have the Sun, Venus, Mars conjunction, which could be very favorable because Venus is involved. It just simply means things working out or pleasures being found in the physical realm. It could also mean peace through strength. If so, I hope we're talking about a real peace. A somewhat improbable outcome, though it could happen, would be getting a resolution to a lot of conflicts around the world through peacekeeping teams and truly having peace through strength. Now, this conjunction of Sun, Venus, and Mars, it is actually going to endure for quite a bit of this lunar month, as we will see when we look at the next charts. But the last thing I'll mention is Chiron is now making a trine to Mercury, so this is bringing some healing to our left brains. That's good. First, we got some healing to the right brain, and now the left brain is going to be involved. Now, when we get to the full moon, we're still dealing with Jupiter square Chiron, and it's still a pretty decent square. This is at 21 degrees 2 minutes, 22 degrees 36 minutes. And we still have Sun, Venus, and Mars pretty tightly conjunct up here. The moon is in opposition to them. So we'll have these two concerns, seeking these physical pleasures of one sort or another through romance, sport, or even peace through strength. And with moon in Cancer, that puts an additional emphasis on the home, the family, and security. We also still have the Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto minor grand trine effect. And the lunar nodal axis is now going to be making sextiles and trines to all three of these planets, Sun, Venus, and Mars. So the meaning of this conjunction in Capricorn, it is going to receive some additional emphasis, some additional intensity, but in a good way, a well-coordinated way. And these lunar nodes are also making a trine as sextile to the moon, and that is completing what we call a mystic rectangle here. So this could be a flow of energy, which is both energizing. Oh, gosh, these. Excuse me. Both energizing and well coordinated at the same time. So, full moon's not so bad for the world. When we get to the third quarter moon, though, the tensions increase. We have a grand cross here. We still have Sun, Venus, and Mars conjunct. Though interestingly, Venus and Mars have switched sides, but this is still in effect. Now it's going to be in opposition to Jupiter, being squared by the moon here and here, and also by Chiron here and here. So, with Chiron involved, this is where we could get some more wounding at the time of the third quarter moon. So, watch out for that. This is going to be a day where tensions have increased. And our minor grand trine has broken up somewhat. We still have transing Uranus, sextile Saturn and Neptune, making a much weaker sextile to Pluto. My trine from Pluto to Uranus using my harmonic orbs, it's now out of orb. And we have Mercury making a sextile and a trine to the lunar nodal axis. So people's left brains will be on a little bit heightened alert at this time, but they are beneficial aspects, soft aspects rather than hard aspects to Mercury. So that part probably won't be so bad, but there will be an increase in tension at this time. And this is a time when something could break or people could be wounded by one thing or another. But when we get to the new moon on January 18th, 2026, whatever oppositions or squares we have are not all that strong. What is very strong is this incredible minor grand trine where we have Uranus strongly sextile Saturn and Neptune, and Saturn and Neptune making strong sextiles to all of these planets up here, and Uranus making a strong trine to these planets up here. And an incredible conjunction of Mars, Mercury, Moon, Sun, Venus, and Pluto. Venus and Pluto are now in Aquarius. The others are in Capricorn, but will be soon transitioning into Aquarius. So we're on the threshold of this transition from discipline, control, Saturnian-like Capricorn to collaboration with others, transformation of technology, charity, humanitarianism. And this is such a strong and powerful configuration. I just wonder what is going to happen on this day. We may have a lot of breakthroughs in technology being announced at this time, more beneficial, harmonious, new philosophies and structures come into being. It's really hard to say exactly how this will manifest, but I am expecting something very beneficial to occur at this time. And the children born on this day are going to be phenomenal. This is going to be the vibration, the harmonious, well-coordinated vibration that they carry with them through their lives. The only possible downside is that there might not be enough struggle, enough tension in their lives to allow them to fully manifest these particular transcendent gifts. But I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping we do see some very transcendent children born at this time who bring incredible gifts to us once they reach adulthood. Okay, now let's look at America. And of course, things are going to be a little bit more tense for America. And the chart I like to use for America is not the July 4th Sibley chart that so many other people use. Instead, I used the July 2nd, 1776 chart, set for around 11:50 a.m. in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, because that is when the Declaration of Independence was actually passed by the Continental Congress. This is when the decision was made. July 4th was when they made some final changes to wording, ratified that, printed it, and went public. Now, I think both charts are really relevant because the creation of America did not happen at a single moment, but it was a process over time. And you can carry it forward even to the moment a decade or so later when the U.S. Constitution was finally written and later got ratified. So the creation of America was a process, but the July 2nd, 1776 passage of the Declaration of Independence by the Continental Congress was one of the important parts of that process. And even though the other charts also have an influence, I like this one a little bit better. Now, we do have some tensions, ongoing tensions this month. For the entire lunar month, Neptune will be making a square to Venus in Cancer. And this is creating dissatisfaction and insecurity among people. People are very worried about all the ideological changes that are occurring in the country. And throughout the lunar month, there are going to be a lot of stresses, most of which are related to Mars. We have Mars square ascendant, opposite midheaven, opposite Sun, square Saturn. So there are going to be a lot of things going on, causing stress among American people for a few days here and there. When we get into January, transiting Jupiter square natal Chiron starts to become strong. It will be exact on January 10th. For the world, we began in December with transiting Jupiter square, transiting Chiron. And just as that goes away for the world, it returns to America in terms of transiting Jupiter square natal Chiron. So this will likely cause some wounding for people. And wounding could come through things like mass shootings, natural disasters, or even governmental decrees. All sorts of ways that we might experience wounding. And to emphasize this even further, on the same day, on January 10th, transiting Mars square Chiron will become exact. And so transiting Mars is going to act as a trigger, most likely for some sort of wounding on January 10th. So I would be very careful that day if you're in America. And then at the very end of the lunar month, we have Mars in opposition to Mercury and conjunction with the moon. In this July 2nd, 1776 chart, there is an opposition between Mercury and Moon. We go back here. You can see Mercury is in the 10th house, which has to do with the executive branch. Moon is in the 4th house, which has to do with the homeland, the home, the homeland, and also the people of the homeland. And so this can highlight some sort of disconnect between what the people in the country want and what the executive branch wants. And there could even be some acts of violence around that. And it looks like both these things are going to be exact on the same day. It looks like that's the 16th. So those are the tensions for the month. We have some beneficial aspects too. At the start of the lunar month, continuing through the rest of December, we have Saturn making a sextile to the moon and a trine to Mercury. Okay, and that was actually going on for all of December. It was active in the previous lunar month. Now let me go back to this chart for a second. Saturn is in Pisces right now, so it's making a sextile to Mercury. That's in the 10th house, the executive branch. And that has been beneficial to the executive branch and the president getting its way quite a bit. That's the trine to Mercury, the sextile to the moon. Well, this can mean that personal discipline and restraint can be beneficial to people right now. Certainly, inflation is going up, prices are increasing. It's harder to get by. The more we can exercise personal discipline and restraint, the better and more secure we're going to be. Now, Saturn in this July 2nd, 1776 chart, it's transiting through the 6th house. And the 6th house has to do with health and employment. And we're seeing changes in healthcare, restrictions in healthcare. Premiums are about to skyrocket. Advice coming out of the CDC or Health and Human Services is changing and not necessarily for the better, according to most experts. And we have also seen a contraction in hiring. It is very, very difficult now for young people in particular to find jobs. So this is not surprising as Saturn transits through the 6th house in this particular chart. But the remedy to all of this in many ways is restraint and discipline. Now, I don't mean to imply that that is a panacea for everything. If you're broke, you have nothing to eat, and discipline doesn't go very far. But if you do have some extra money, be careful how you spend it, and that can make things better. Now, we also have throughout the entire lunar month transiting Uranus and Taurus, making a trine to Pluto in Capricorn. Now, in general, that suggests innovative or innovation when it comes to finances and resources, things we need to survive. They will help us increase our power. Now, we had trine between Uranus and Pluto for the world in general, but this is going to be natal Pluto in the USA chart. And let's take a look back at this chart for a second. Uranus and Taurus, it's going to be in the 8th house. And that's a difficult house. Traditionally, death, transformation, other people's money or resources, and debt. Pluto is in Capricorn, but it's in the 4th house, which has to do with the homeland and the people. Possibly, people who are struggling right now, they may get some relief from the federal government, but that relief could very likely push us even further into debt. I'm not saying that is what is going to happen, that is just one possibility. Okay, now we also have Jupiter making a sextile to Neptune, Jupiter in Cancer, natal Neptune in Virgo. In general, this could cause some euphoria for people. And that euphoria is not necessarily good. They may be overly optimistic. They may overspend on things. Okay. And if we go back to the USA chart, let's see, Jupiter is basically up here in Cancer. Neptune is in Virgo in the 12th house. And it could be the executive branch, without much opposition, engaging in some sorts of behind the scenes covert actions. So the sextile says it's going to be easy to do that, but it's not necessarily going to be beneficial if that is indeed what occurs. Now, when we get into January, transiting Mars is going to be making a trine to Neptune. Looks like that is exact on the 13th. And even though Jupiter sextile Neptune is waning at this time, these might play into one another, feed into one another a little bit. This still might trigger more of what is occurring at this time. Okay, so around Christmas time, people may be feeling euphoria, but the executive branch may be engaging in some covert actions that aren't necessarily good. Keep an eye out for all of that. Okay, and then beginning in the second week of January, we have Saturn making a sextile to Pluto. And transiting Saturn and transiting Uranus at this time are going to be forming a minor grand trine with natal Pluto. We have transiting Uranus, pretty strongly trining Pluto, and transiting Saturn will be making a sextile to Pluto, and Saturn and Uranus will be making their own sextile up in the sky. So this could bring something more beneficial to the country and to people. So, as is often the case in astrology, you have contradictory indications because that is the way that life is. Things work out well in one part of life, while at the same time, things are not working out so well in another part. So, all in all, January or this lunar month is going to be having both its good points and its stresses for people in America. People are still going to be experiencing a lot of dissatisfaction. There might be some times of violence or heightened frustration, some wounding that goes on in America. But any sort of discipline and planning for the future will help. And there might be even some government bailouts or government actions which ease the pain for people. Okay, now if we look at the new moon on December 19th and how it affects this July 2nd, 1776 chart, well, we have Mars in opposition to natal Jupiter. Jupiter is near the cusp of the 10th house, so this could be some anger over actions the executive branch is taking. We have Neptune strongly square Venus. People are going to be dissatisfied or still dissatisfied with a lot of these new policies and ideologies that are taking place. All of this is making people feel less secure. But we have Uranus making that trine to natal Pluto. We have Saturn making a trine to natal Mercury and a sextile to natal Pluto. You can see this Uranus, Saturn, Pluto minor grand trine is being completed by the transiting planets. So there may be something beneficial that comes along involving other people's money, probably our tax money, which also adds to the national debt. We have Jupiter making that sextile to Neptune. So people in general might be feeling some euphoria at the start of this lunar month. But this can also refer to covert actions by the executive branch that they take without much opposition. And we have the transiting lunar nodal axis making a sextile and a trine to the natal sun. This will also, since the sun represents the leader of the country, usually the president, and this is in the 10th house, this could be a beneficial aspect for the executive branch and the president of the country of America. Okay, when we get to the full moon, we've got a few more tensions. The most worrisome might be transiting Mars, making a very strong square to natal Saturn. This combines frustration with anger and aggression. This is when things could be boiling over. There could be some acts of violence in the country. Or, as I say, this could also manifest as natural disasters. But Mars will be going through the 4th house, so it's going to be the people, the homeland out there that is going to be angry about things. We still have Neptune square Venus that lasts the entire lunar month. People are still dissatisfied with policies. And transiting Sun and Venus are going to be in opposition to natal Sun. Again, Sun, Venus going through the fourth house, the home, the homeland, the people living in this country. They are in opposition to what the president and the executive branch are doing right now, even though in many ways the executive branch will be able to take lots of actions without a lot of opposition. Now, transiting the moon is going to be conjunct the sun at this point, making those actions perhaps a little bit more public or intensifying, adding a little energy to whatever the president is doing. I've talked about the Uranus trine to Pluto, and then the lunar nodal axis makes a sextile and a trine to the sun. So Trump is going to shine. That doesn't mean that what he does is good. Hopefully it will be good, but it just means he will be shining, and whatever he does, it will be a little easier for him to do at this particular point in time. But we do see this increase in tensions and more anger from the public at the time of the full moon. When we get to the new moon in January 18th, 2026, I talked about what an extraordinary time that will be for the world, for America, not necessarily so. We have the transiting lunar nodal axis making a square to Uranus. That is going to stir up feelings for revolution. At its best, this will energize invention. In the natal chart for America, we have Uranus and Gemini, so we're very innovative, very inventive, but we're also very revolutionary. And we tend to get involved in wars whenever transiting Uranus goes through Gemini, which it will soon return to toward the end of April. But this could trigger some sort of revolutionary sentiment or wars. Perhaps with Venezuela, we might take more aggressive actions. It's not written in stone, but those are simply possibilities for how this might manifest. Transiting Neptune, still square natal Venus. People are not happy with policies and new ideologies. It's making them feel very insecure. But look at this. We have Mars and Mercury conjunct Neptune and Pluto in an opposition to natal Mercury. This is going to be more anger and aggression, either coming from the people directed at the executive branch, or it could be aggressive actions on the part of Trump to do what he feels is needed to protect the homeland. But with Capricorn down here being activated, the government could be a little bit more oppressive, a little bit more tending to control things. So we have indications of heightened aggression, revolution, war, conflict at this point in time. I don't want to overstate the war possibility because I don't imagine something like a global nuclear war, for example. I'm thinking more in terms of ongoing battles in the streets in America and skirmishes with other countries like Venezuela. So this could play out in other ways, ways that fit in with the nature of these planets, but which I haven't mentioned or haven't thought of yet. So remember, nothing is written in stone until people make choices using their free will. We also have Sun, Moon, conjunct natal Moon, and Pluto. So there's going to be a lot of emphasis on the public and the people. What are we going to be doing at this time? What are our needs or our demands? And we have Saturn, as I've talked about, making that sextile to natal Pluto, Uranus making a trine, Saturn and Uranus are strongly sextile one another at this point, so it's completing that minor grand trine. Thus, the anger of the people will probably generate a response, which may come in the form of financial bailouts to help ease the tensions for various sectors of society. But those bailouts come with a price if we don't offset them with, for instance, taxes on the wealthy and wealthy corporations. We're just going to increase our national debt. And whenever we use tax money to provide relief for one segment of society, we're the ones who are paying for that. It may be something we want, it may not be something we want to happen. And now let's take a look at Donald Trump. Of course, here's his chart. Sun, North Node, Uranus, and Gemini. Conjunct in the 10th house, he has an insatiable desire for power. And of course, in Gemini, he won't stop talking. And he babbles a lot, but what he now calls the weave. The ruler of Taurus is Venus. It's conjunct Saturn in his 11th house. So this is, when it comes to his power, his status, that is the one area in which he is very disciplined. And he collaborates with others, in particular with strong men, in order to enhance his own status and his own sense of security, since Venus and Saturn are in Cancer. Okay, let's look at his transits. Well, he still has some very good transits going on. All of December and strongly into January. Exact on December 6th and again on January 28th. He has Chiron sextile Sun. So despite whatever other things are going on, despite whatever criticisms people are making, he is getting a lot of healing at this point in time. And transiting Saturn is trine his natal Venus that rules his 10th house. That's going to be exact on the 23rd. And it seems like something else was going to be exact on the 23rd. Let me go back here. Look at some of these other. Here we go. Jupiter sextile Neptune. That is exact on the 23rd for America. And there we go. Saturn trine Venus is exact on the 23rd. So, as I said, with Jupiter in the 10th house, in America's chart, transiting Jupiter, and natal Neptune in the 12th house, Trump could take some sort of covert actions at this point and get away with it. And Saturn trine Venus reiterates that. That is going to only enhance his status since Venus rules the 10th house. So these very favorable aspects are going to be in effect for the entire lunar month, or most of the lunar month. And that is going to help him out a lot. Now, he will have some things, some nagging irritations coming from Mars. He has Mars square Neptune, Mars opposition to his Mercury, Mars square Chiron. That could cause some personal wounding at this point in time, around January 13th. And let's see, did I have anything else going on at January 13th? On the 10th, there was Mars square Chiron in the USA chart. On the 13th, it's Mars trine Neptune. Well, let's go with Mars square Chiron, and then we move on to Trump. Mars in opposition to Saturn. So that's going to be not on the 13th, that's the 15th. And this was, I see. Yeah, on the 15th, we have Mars square Saturn. And on the 16th, I'm being lost here. We had Jupiter square Chiron here. Mars opposition to Mercury and conjunct Moon. Well, that could be a bad time for Trump and for the country around January 15th, 16th. And Mars square Chiron, that's on the 3rd. And then we have Uranus square Mars. Now, Mars is conjunct his ascendant. And this is a time when there's going to be an increased likelihood for accidents or violence, or, as has happened in the past, he could just get very angry at this particular moment in time. So, but we want to keep an eye on what is going on with Trump during this period. He will be a little bit more erratic, more chaotic, angrier, possibly have an accident, possibly an act of violence someone may be planning against him. If so, then the Mars trine is midheaven on the 15th. That will help offset things, as will the Chiron sextile the Sun, which is still pretty strong. So that is what it looks like overall for Trump. And at the time of the new moon on December 19th, everything is going his way. He has transiting Saturn, trinatal Venus, right here. He has transiting Chiron, sextile natal Sun. He has transiting Mercury, trinatal Pluto. He has transiting Jupiter conjunct his Saturn-Venus conjunction. So at the start of the lunar month, even if there are problems, things are still breaking his way quite a bit and bringing him some healing and helping his status. When we get to the full moon, though, on January 3rd, things are going to be a little bit more tense. And let me go back to the full moon for the country for a second. Yeah, we had things more intense for the country too, with Mars making that strong square to natal Saturn. And Sun Venus opposite, natal Sun showing opposition from the people. Transiting Neptune square Venus showing the dissatisfaction of the people. So what's going on with the USA chart is probably going to sync up with what's going on with Trump at the time of the full moon. And transiting Mars and Sun are going to be squaring his natal Chiron, as is the moon. So the transiting planets are completing a T-square here, which could cause a lot of wounding for Trump. And transiting Uranus, let's see, where is that going to be? Up here, it's squaring his natal Mars, which, as I said, makes him chaotic, angry, and potential for accidents or violence, either from him or to him. And transiting Chiron is going to be making a square to his natal Saturn at this point. Okay. And so there is this heightened potential for aggression and wounding occurring around the time of the full moon with respect to Donald Trump. But the lifelines he gets are transiting Saturn, will be trining natal Venus. That helps his status, helps his sense of harmony and pleasure. And transiting Chiron is going to be making a sextile to his natal sun and a trine to his natal moon. Okay, so that will bring him some healing. But for the nation and for Trump, we really want to keep an eye out for what's going to happen around the time of this full moon on January 3rd. And then when we get to the new moon on January 18th, we still have transiting Uranus square natal Mars. Transiting Mars is now conjunct transiting Mercury, and they're in opposition to his natal Venus. So this could be some attacks on Trump's status that he has to deal with. But the lifelines are still there. We have transiting Chiron, sextile his natal sun, and the transiting lunar nodal axis will be making beneficial aspects to his natal Mercury. So there will be an ease of communication. Okay. And collaboration with others. So that is going to be it for Trump. And for both America and Donald Trump, it looks like the most critical time will be around the time of the full moon. And now let me do just kind of a little summary here. First, for the world, we have the Sun, Venus, and Mars will be conjunct for most of the lunar month. Venus wants to reduce tension, but Mars wants to increase tension. Hence, people may want to focus on actions that give them physical pleasure. This can include romance, exercise, sports, or other activities they enjoy. The Sun and Venus are in Sagittarius at the start of the month, and that puts an emphasis on travel, the thoughts of the masses, and a desire for growth and freedom. However, these planets will soon move into Capricorn, where the emphasis will be on pulling back on growth in order to better control and regulate one's life. Jupiter in Cancer will square Chiron in Aries exactly on the day of the winter solstice. And so this influence may be felt for the next 3 months. In general, people will want to feel secure in their homes and personal space, and they will want to be able to grow in these environments. However, wounding from outside aggressive actions may likely interfere. From the second week of January until the end of the lunar month, Saturn and Pisces will sextile Uranus and Taurus. This could result in innovative dreams about resources being made concrete. The Uranus, Neptune, Pluto minor grand trine will endure throughout most of the month, and this will continue to spur imagination, innovation, and creativity. Globally, invention and advances in technology will continue. On a personal level, though, more and more people will open themselves up to higher perspectives. Some will undergo deep transformation, and those who are the most spiritually awake will help spread this enlightenment by connecting to everyone through meditation. The most difficult time of the month may be the Grand Cross at the time of the third quarter moon on January 10th. Nonetheless, the next full moon on January 18th shows incredible harmony. Also, during the first week of the lunar month, trines from Chiron to Venus and Mercury will help promote healing of the mind. However, other aspects involving inner planets will bring small but almost daily challenges. Now for America, transiting Neptune in Pisces, square natal Venus in Cancer, will continue to drive discontent among the public regarding the ideological direction the country is taking. The philosophies of others will cause confusion and conflict with personal values. Beware of conspiracy theories. However, transiting Saturn in Pisces in the 6th house, trine 10th house Mercury in Cancer, and sextile natal Moon in Capricorn, in the 4th house will likely result in constructive actions that will benefit the economy, relations with other countries, the executive branch, and the people. Workers and healthcare could also be affected. In short, self-discipline and hard work will benefit everybody. This will last until about the end of December. Transiting Uranus and Taurus in the 8th house, trine natal Pluto and Capricorn in the 4th house could increase the power of Americans in general. Since Uranus is in Taurus, this may happen through the resources of others or other financial matters. Transiting Jupiter, sextile natal Neptune, peaks on December 23rd and lasts until approximately the end of December. This will tend to create some euphoria this holiday season that may, however, be unrealistic. Transiting Jupiter square natal Chiron in January will likely increase some wounding for America. When this aspect was last exact on September 15th, Americans were facing rising inflation, and 40% said they were expecting another civil war. Also on September 10th, Charlie Kirk was assassinated in Utah. At the end of the lunar month, the transiting lunar nodal axis will strongly square natal Uranus, and this could stir up some war or revolutionary sentiment. Now for Trump, transiting Chiron, sextile natal sun will bring healing to Trump and his status throughout the lunar month. And with transiting Jupiter conjunct natal Venus and transiting Saturn trine natal Venus at the start of the lunar month, many things will go Trump's way. Also, Saturn trine Venus will be exact on December 23rd, the same day that transiting Jupiter will exactly sextile natal Neptune in the July 2nd, 1776 chart for America. Thus, favorable events may occur that tie these two transits together. Nonetheless, the full moon on January 3rd will be a difficult time with an increased risk of wounding of some sort, and a series of hard transits from Mars. Transits from Mars will plague Trump throughout the lunar month. Beginning with the second week of January, transiting Uranus square natal Mars will likely make Trump angry and even more chaotic than usual. January 13th through January 18th will be when Trump is most at risk from anger or violence due to transiting Mars opposite his natal Saturn and Venus. Okay, that is it for the lunar month, and I'm back. So I hope you found that interesting and informative. It gives sort of a broad outline, a weather report, but we can only go into so much detail because the truth is that people have free will. So I can tell you what the astrological weather is going to be like, but I can't tell you how people are going to react to that weather. Nonetheless, in broad terms, I find that these lunar months and other interpretations I do are often fairly accurate, but the proof is in the pudding. So we'll just have to wait and see. And I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you join me again for more astrological weather forecasts on what lies ahead for us. But for now, I'll just say so long and be well.